Hey, I'm Brendan Brazier, and I'm co-founder of Vega and Pulp Culture. And today on Ever Forward Radio, talking about performance and how to get the best out of yourself and live life the way you want to.
3, 2, 1.
Brazier, welcome to Ever Forward Radio, man. I'm stoked. I'm so stoked for this.
Well, thanks. Yeah, great to be here.
We were just kind of catching up on talking about mushrooms, talking about cider, two things that probably most people don't talk about at the same time. And I'm definitely going to get into the story here, but I mean, this is just so top of mind for me and your new baby. So before we get to kind of the story that led you to, being such an incredible endurance athlete and creating supplements and products to support that, why adaptogens? Why cider? Why this new venture?
Well, it's interesting. Like I hadn't drank in 14 years because whenever I did drink, I just didn't feel good. The next day I didn't feel as good. I couldn't focus as well. I couldn't train as well. So to me, it was just something that, something I did once in a while back in the old days. I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. That's not good. I've grown out of that. And then, it was at Whole Foods in Venice, right by where I live. And I saw this can, this was about 2 years ago, this can of 101 cider sitting on the shelf, and it had one ingredient. It was just apples. And I thought, how cool is that? There is one ingredient. Like, how many products have one ingredient other than like the produce section?
Water. Very rare
right.
anymore. Really.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was like, that's so cool. But there's no sugar in it. There are B vitamins, there are probiotics, there's organic acids, and it's all apple. Like, how does that even make sense? So first time I've ever done this, I emailed info@101cider.com. I want to hit up this company. This is really cool. And this guy responds right away. 20 minutes later, he is also from Canada. I am originally from Vancouver. He was from Toronto. So he knew of me from Canada and the fitness world, the fitness industry that he was also in. And Vega, he was a Vega consumer. So he's like,
he saw that email. I was like, yeah, I'm responding now for damn.
Right. Yeah, no, it was really nice. And so we met up, we became really good friends, and he explained fermentation to me. And I thought, this is just such an elegant solution. It's just like people are trying to figure out in a lab, like how to make hangover cure pills because people drink and they feel bad. And it's like, why don't you just drink stuff that's clean and doesn't make you feel bad? And alcohol doesn't have to be bad. When you look at it like we look at this as a fermented drink, not an alcoholic drink, and fermentation just happens to be one of the outcomes, or alcohol happens to be one of the outcomes of fermentation, but also organic acids, B vitamins, probiotics, all these other good things that you want. So we call it full spectrum. So we think of it as a fermented drink as opposed to an alcoholic drink, which I really like. To me, that just made a lot of sense. And I drank it. I felt great. Could go to the gym soon after. I felt well hydrated. I never got a headache. It helped with digestion. So I, would eat it or drink it with dinner, and always really helped. And so then we just got to talking. I invested in the company, and then we got to talking about what's next. And so we produced Pulp Culture together, which is basically the base, so fermented juice. And then we take fermented superfood juice from a multitude of superfoods, ferment in the same way as we would apples, and then blend it with botanical adaptogens, lion's mane, reishi, that type of thing for different effects. And so adaptogens and probiotics and everything good. And then you can drink and, you feel good. It's 4.9% alcohol, but you don't have that social tax that you pay later. And I really feel with me, it helped with focus and creativity and digestion, all these simple things, and never had to pay the price for it.
You said, technically two key words that are, I think, a big focus for a lot of supplements companies, and or at least top of mind for me as a trying to become a continuously more educated consumer. And when I put into my body, regardless of my professional background, I think this day and age, people are becoming more mindful of that. They want to know more about what they're putting in their body. And look, you can never go wrong with what you're eating, drinking. The fewer the ingredients, the better. But full spectrum, describe that for us, please. What exactly does that mean? And more importantly, maybe what do those two words not mean for the consumer?
Yeah, no, great question. So full spectrum is basically the way alcohol is very commonly produced. It's distilled and it's isolated. The same as caffeine is isolated from either coffee or matcha or yerba mate. Um, that's when it's not as good. It's harder on your body. If you like matcha, for example, it has all the outcomes. It doesn't just have caffeine. It has chlorophyll. It has B vitamins. It has organic acids. It's the same with fermentation. You get all the outcomes of fermentation, and alcohol is just one of them. So full spectrum refers to every outcome from the fermentation, which, like I say, B vitamins, organic acids, probiotics, all these things. So you have that. And Mark, actually, my partner, uses a really good analogy. Like he's, in South America, and you see like some old lady sitting on the side of the road chewing on a coca leaf, a big smile on her face, super happy, totally healthy, getting on with her day. But when you extract cocaine from that leaf and have that as an isolate, not so good. That's when problems happen. But when it's in its full spectrum, all the other cofactors are around that, totally healthy, perfectly good. Same with alcohol. When you have all the other outcomes of fermentation along with the alcohol, it's actually very good. It's not unhealthy, and actually has many health benefits when you have everything together. So that's what full spectrum is.
Would you say this is also kind of what we use to describe as increased bioavailability when we source things that are more full spectrum? Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's more bioavailable because that's the way it is in nature, and it's just intended to be that way. When we start isolating anything, it's harder for the body to process and assimilate. And those cofactors are there for a reason, to help, like I say, with digestion, assimilation, absorption, all those things.
Let's run through. I pulled up, because I don't want to get any of this wrong, I pulled up the website here for Pulp Culture. And at its core, this is a hard pressed juice. This is I'll make the statement of a much more clean alcoholic beverage that has more bioavailability, more bioavailable ingredients in it, that fuel your body, fuel your mind, fuel your gut. Let's walk through some of these core ingredients. And I want to know, why did you choose to put some of these in here? And maybe what are some that didn't make the cut? Like, what's the core Pulp Culture ingredient list? And what are some that you thought about, but just for some reason didn't make it?
Yeah, so interesting question. So the way we look at it is we don't call them flavors either. We call them blends,
which I love, by the way.
A different way. Yeah, like the function first, right? And then I'll talk about flavor in a bit too, and how we arrived at that. But we wanted to have different use cases, really. So there's a think, a hustle, a restore, and a relax. So that's sort of like the order you would drink it in. The think has a bit of
for the end result you're after, right? Like
exactly, yeah, as a function.
Yeah.
Right, like not this sort of like mindless consumption. Like, what is the purpose? Why are you drinking this? Why are you eating this? And we did that with Vega too. Like there has to be an outcome. There has to be a purpose for this. Like, just don't eat to not be hungry anymore. There's so much more. We're so much more advanced than that. Why have such a low bar? Like let's think proactively, and just in a more sort of outcome oriented, what I would think is a more intelligent way to eat and drink. How do we want to feel? How do we want to think? Like, what are we trying to achieve? So, with this too, like, so the first blend, Think, has a bit of matcha in it, which does have some naturally occurring caffeine, which of course can help with focus. And when you combine that with some of the naturally occurring full spectrum alcohol, I find it really helps with creativity, but also productivity. So, it's a great one to have when you're, writing, or you just like, you got a bunch of emails you got to get through, whatever it is. And you just
got to get through the grind.
Focus. You just get through it. You just crush it.
Do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I find that one really helpful for that. And again, like not having an isolated anything in it, but the full ingredient that has been fermented. And the interesting thing is too, and something that, I think, again, the education around this can be really important, but there are ingredients listed on those cans that you don't necessarily taste. So for example, blueberry in the Relax doesn't really taste like blueberry because it's fermented blueberry. So none of the sugar is there. So of course, blueberries taste different when they don't have sugar. It's like Wine doesn't really taste like grapes. Beer doesn't taste like wheat or barley, right? Because it's fermented.
Yeah.
So helping people understand the blueberry is there for the function, for the antioxidants, not for the flavor. So I think one challenge we may find is people may see blueberry as an example written on there and think, oh, it's going to taste like blueberry, and it tastes like fermented blueberry. So like, what does that taste like? Something you've probably never even
the
thought of.
schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Right. It's totally like this whole other experience. It's like with wine too, right? Which I'm not an expert in, but I've been learning more about. And, all these different flavor notes you get from things that are not in there, like, lemon or freshly cut grass or like, like tennis balls. Like,
I went
like
to
all
Napa one time, and all of a sudden they start saying all these words, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally agree. But then also like, no, I don't taste lemongrass. I don't taste wood chippings. Like, just,
right.
You say it, you think it, you taste it sometimes, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think that helping people understand that there are all these different notes and the complexity of flavors too. And it's all, like I say, sugar-free, so more sour. So it's sort of a more refined palate in a sense, which kombucha is too. And I remember when the kombucha craze started, a few years back, and people would have a kombucha and they're like, oh, this is terrible. It's vinegary. I don't like it. And then by the end of the bottle, they're like, oh, that's actually not too bad. And then they have another one, and then they, drink it every day. And that's what led to kombucha blowing up. And this is very similar. It is a bit of an acquired taste. But what I found too is that it helps people kind of get off sugar. Like they stop craving sugar, because that's sort of like an entry level craving. And then as you sort of like evolve your palate and sort of clean it up, you really crave this complexity and these other flavors that you never even knew existed, and get away from sugar. So several friends who have started drinking this regularly found that they just don't crave sugar as much either. So that's kind of a nice result.
Amazing. Yeah, we all could benefit from sugar reduction, no matter how much or little maybe in your diet. Currently, I'll make the blanket statement here. If we all decrease our sugar consumption, not a bad thing, really.
Yeah, no, agree for sure. I mean, yeah, people eat way too much sugar, of course. And, and I think too, like, and it has its, and I've had, I don't want to go too much of a tangent, but yeah, sugar has its place too, right? Like right before a hard workout, eating a date or something that's high in glucose to give you that quick energy makes total sense. But you're not going to, load up on that before going to bed when you're not going to burn off the sugar. So I think it has its place, but for the most part, yeah, I mean, we just consume way too much sugar.
Now, this all comes from someone that, like we all heard moments ago, you didn't drink alcohol for years, 14 years, over a decade, a decade and a half almost.
Yeah.
And you went from total abstinence because of reasons that just hindered your performance, to now creating this company that is, I'm sold. It's incredible. But I just think it's so amazing how someone who's come from the ultra endurance background like yourself has come out with this lineup. So let's backtrack. Let's go, before all of this. What was your performance like? What was your training like? And I mean, clearly we're cutting out alcohol. What were some of the things you were doing to just honor your daily performance beyond cutting out this alcohol consumption?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a while now. I haven't raced full-time professionally in 16, 17 years, really. Wow. But yeah, I raced full-time for 7 years, did Ironman triathlon. And yeah, it was a full-time job. We were training 35, 40 hours a week, just high volume. The thing that attracted me to the sport in the first place was really that if you worked hard, you would have success. It was basically that simple. Like the longer the event, the less talent matters, the more hard work matters. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, I can work hard. I love it. Like to me, it wasn't like work. Some people would ask, well, how do you push yourself to train so much each day? And it's like, I don't push myself. I love it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. I love swimming, biking, and running. It's fun to me. I enjoy it. That's why I started it. It's not like this thing I have to motivate myself to go and do. And still, every morning I get up and I go for a bike ride. I go for a run. I do something. It's just what I like to do. Like it doesn't take motivation for me. So maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. That's just, I started at an early age. I started as a young teenager. And actually I read something a while ago. It was kind of interesting that if you start a habit when your hormones are forming, like sort of preteen through like 17, 18, it becomes so much harder to stop, like whether it's smoking, drinking, or exercise. It's formative years, hormonally speaking. So I think people who have started it back then, like me, it just becomes ingrained. Like it's not something I ever dread. It's very much the opposite. I love it. And if I don't do it. So I basically have no, like, no willpower required. I mean, it's just fun. I love going out. Like this morning, I went out for a beautiful trail run this morning in Topanga, and I can't think of anything I would have rather do. So I guess I'm lucky.
I mean, lucky, freak of nature, genetically gifted. I'm sure you've heard a lot of different ways to describe, what you do in your chosen sport of just going for extended periods of time on earth, in the sea, on bike, a lot of different ways. And motivation, I think, is something very, very unique that people struggle with. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you said it wasn't hard for you. You didn't need to find motivation. You just woke up, you did it, you loved it. And so we'll take, the theory of, I built that habit in my early teenage years, and it was just solidified in me. But let's put that aside. Someone who wants to just, I won't say get full blown with an Ironman, but look, we're talking about ways to train, to eat, to drink better, right? What would you tell someone who struggles with motivation to just get better in one way today?
I think, as far as nutrition goes, what I found works really well is not thinking about what you don't want to eat, but just adding more good stuff. Having a smoothie each morning, just like for me, of course, it's Vega. I blend up a Vega smoothie, put a bunch of greens in there, and it just feels good. Like it just works well. And now, of course, I crave greens. I love greens. So I eat a lot. But in the beginning I didn't, like anyone else, but again, your palate changes over time. It just starts to change. So if you just add a little bit in, and I think you want to get to the point where you never feel deprived. Feeling deprived is no way to live. You don't want that. It's not healthy. I don't think it requires too much willpower, and willpower, if you spend it, you no longer have it. And then if you come up, with a real challenge in life and your willpower is gone because you've been forcing yourself to eat something you don't really want to eat, probably no better off, right?
Yeah, so rubber band effect, right? The more and more we pull and try to force ourselves to get away from the thing that we want, there's going to come a snapping point, and then you don't just come back a little bit, you come back full blown.
Right. No, 100%. So yeah, I think just adding things in and just slowly just putting in more good food. And then, like I say, palate changes, you start craving the better stuff. You don't want to eat the bad stuff anymore. Like stuff that once was really appealing to you now seems disgusting. Like you just don't want to eat it. And that's such a great place to be because you don't feel deprived. You just eat whatever you want. It just happens to be really healthy, good stuff. So I think, to me, that ought to be the goal for folks who are, struggling with that, as opposed to going on a diet and really restrictive for, 4 or 6 weeks. And maybe they lose some weight and they start looking better, and that's great. But is that really lifestyle, or is that just a small snapshot in time? Right. So I think the goal, to me, makes so much more sense to have it just second nature, just be lifestyle, and that's just who you become.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. I'm all for the add more. When we're trying to make ourselves better, our fitness and our nutrition, our lifestyle, our mindset, oftentimes it really is about addition, not so much subtraction. Just do
and that just happens. Like I say, I mean, it just then the stuff you're like, oh, I don't want to eat that. That burger or whatever, that would taste horrible. That would be heavy. I wouldn't digest it. It just wouldn't feel good. Yeah. So then you don't. And then you've just changed.
Before, I got a few more questions I want to dive into, and just, I got such a great example of what the human potential is here in terms of physical performance and business. I realized that I forgot to follow up on my last question. We're going through speaking of adding more good stuff, the ingredients in pulp culture. And can you walk us through a couple of those key ones? Really specifically, I want to know why mushrooms. I love mushrooms, lion's mane, reishi, all these things. I've been using them for years, promoting them for years, studying them for years. I have my input in my personal professional experience, but why mushrooms? And also, were there any other ingredients that you wanted in there that maybe didn't make the cut? Like I said, public pushback, or the world's not ready yet, or just couldn't quite mix with everything else going on. I want to walk through a couple of these key ingredients, please.
Sure. Yeah. So maca, I'm a big fan of maca. That was one of the things actually that got me into starting Vega. Actually, I heard someone was on the radio back in 2003 who started a company in Canada importing maca. And I didn't know what it was, no idea. And he was explaining how it's an adaptogen and it can help lower cortisol, stress hormone. And when cortisol is lower, you can sleep more deeply, so you're better rested. You don't crave caffeine and sugar because you've treated you've treated the cause of the problem, not the symptom. And these things that were really appealing to me. So that's when I learned about maca, and I actually contacted the guy who was on the radio because I was so fascinated by what he's talking about. Turned out he lived very close to me in Vancouver. We met up, we hung out, and we started Vega together. That's how Vega started, was me hearing him on the radio. Wow. Charles Chang, who became, amazing business partner. So
an exact example, just find what you like and reach out to the people who made it, or, who are in the sphere. That's incredible, man.
Well, it's like a repeat with this too. I saw a product on the shelf that I thought was amazing. So I reached out.
A simple email.
The founder is Mark. Yeah. Simple email. Great guy. We became friends and now we're business partners. And, it's just people overcomplicate things sometimes. Stuff's not that hard. Like just figure out what you're interested in, what you like, and just go and make it happen.
So you have the maca. What about lion's mane and reishi? Why these two?
So those were ones that I've learned about more recently. So I'm a big Four Sigmatic fan as well. And I don't know if
I'm on shrooms every day with them. Yeah.
Lion's
mane, cordyceps, chaga every day for like 5 years now.
Nice. So yeah, Taro, the founder, they're a good friend as well and great guy. And he's actually an investor in Pulp culture too. So
that doesn't surprise me.
it makes total sense, right? So I learned a lot from him. He has a mushroom academy, all that in his book about mushrooms. And again, just sort of going back to adaptogens, like helping your body to adapt to stress. And it's not putting anything in necessarily or taking anything out. It's just basically getting back to that balance that your body wants. So lion's mane, for example, helps with focus and can help you just not get so distracted and just actually get some work done, which can be very helpful. And when you combine that with matcha, which is in think, and then a bit of naturally occurring fermented, alcohol, then that's a great combo for creativity and focus. And those two things, when those are together, it's a big benefit. And some folks that we've noticed have been buying it online are, a lot of people in the tech industry who want creativity and focus. People who, don't have time to have a hangover and not feel good. They want to feel good and they want to. It should be
everybody, by the way. Who has time for a hangover? Nobody.
Right. No. And then so people will drink like vodka and water or whatever, or some sort of, seltzer with no sugar, but you still get a hangover. It doesn't feel good. The way it was produced is, it's very, not the healthiest way of doing it. It's malt liquor, really, like seltzer. A lot of people don't know that. It's malt liquor just blended with sparkling water. But lion's mane for focus, really, and reishi, just relax, chill out, just sort of I don't have a problem with that. Like I'm not high strung. I'm not like type A personality who can't turn off his thoughts. Like I can. But some people can't. And I know that really helps with them too. Like some people, have trouble sleeping because things just keep running through their brain. I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
And that's not me. Like when I lie down, like I'm out, I'm asleep. I have no problem sleeping at all. I don't sleep that long compared to some people. I don't think, but I think I sleep really deeply and I never have a problem getting to sleep. But for those who do, like reishi, things like that can really, really help.
Reishi's been incredible for me. It's typically thought of, as the sleepy adaptogen, the sleep mushroom. Most people consume it in the evening, but at certain doses, like a lower dose in, for example, one of the Four Sigmatic blends or in one of your Pulp culture drinks, it has incredible immunomodulator effects. Reishi is called the queen mushroom, for those of you that don't know, because besides chaga is an immune boosting powerhouse mushroom, but reishi, it does incredible things to help immunomodulate. So if your immune system's running super high, it can help bring you back down to your homeostasis. And if it's running super low at certain doses, the right doses, it can bring it back up. And clinically proven, it is, in fact, someone correct me if I'm wrong here, please, the most clinically studied and clinically proven adaptogen medicinal mushroom to lower cortisol levels. Now, what does that mean? It lowers stress. Cortisol, we need it. We need certain parts of it throughout certain parts of the day, but sometimes we have too much. Stress runs amok. So reishi, will help lower cortisol, which in turn helps you become more relaxed, calms your mind, calms your body, so that at that dosage in the evening, you can slip into sleep a little bit easier. Anything that didn't make the cut? What other ingredients are you kind of studying that may come out later? A new functional flavor, if you will, or something that just like, nah, the world isn't ready for this right now?
Well, one, we were playing around with maca to get it in a form that wouldn't mess up the texture, and just couldn't do that yet. Maybe at some point. Electrolytes, I think we're going to bring that out too at some point, like with just naturally occurring, like Himalayan sea salt type thing that will have all different types of potassium, magnesium, minerals, electrolytes, right? So that can really help too, obviously, with hydration and just helping you feel good. I mean, especially in warmer weather, right? You don't just sweat water, you sweat electrolytes. So you got to put them back in. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So then let's backtrack now a little bit more to, the origin of all this. We know that you're an incredibly good emailer and radio listener, and you take action on these things. Now here we go with the business stuff, but this all came because of your early habit building, your love, your innate motivation for pushing the human envelope, man. Walk us through, what does it take to be an ultra endurance athlete like this? Walk us through, what was a day in your peak training? What was a day in the life like that? And why, why just keep pushing the human boundaries?
Yeah. For me, it was just fun. It was just enjoyable. I started running track in high school. I loved it. I thought if I could do that professionally and have a career as an athlete, that would be amazing. I could then do what I wanted all day long. And that sounded very appealing to do that. And I realized being a professional runner is very hard. But triathlon was actually, that's kind of doable. Like, it's sort of the thing that, if you grow up in an area where there are pools to swim in, and there are, you have access to a bike, and, not everyone has this, right? I mean, and like, that's what I love about running too, by the way. The purity of that is there are no economic boundaries, there's no geographic boundaries. There's not a country on earth who hasn't produced at least a few amazing runners, which to me is just, it's the purest sport that, my heart is definitely with running. Like, it sounds
like
just so
that
great
got
that
you in
way.
the feels a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just such a great, because like I say, it's just, you just grow up anywhere and you just run. Like, you don't need anything. So, but growing up in, a middle class suburb in Vancouver, I was very fortunate. I had access to a bike and to a pool and stuff that, some folks may not, but that's what sort of made it easier too. It's less competitive on an international stage for that reason. The sort of first world countries, dominated triathlon because, they have these.
That's
these
a fair
things
point. Yeah, you have access to these things, right? Yeah, that's
right.
Point.
So it was easier because some countries are kind of cut out from that, unfortunately. But doing triathlon, I started doing it professionally in '98 and did it through 2004, and it was tough. Like, it was just sort of, and I wasn't one of the top people. I was good enough to get by. Like, I had enough sponsors and I made enough prize money to not have to work a real job.
What does good enough mean, real quick? What does that mean? Because good enough, I'm sure you're downplaying here a little bit. What does good enough mean? What does that look like in terms of your running and performance level?
Well, it was like races. I would be like, like top 10, top 5 sometimes.
Okay.
Some other ones I won some national championships, like ultra marathons, but there's no prize money for that. And it's pretty fringe, to be honest. I mean, like, marathon is competitive, but when you start going longer, like I was doing like 50K, which is about 32 miles, which is what they had the national championships at. And, it's not really that competitive. Like, marathon's competitive. Like, you got to be, because it's an internationally recognized distance. So it's way harder. But yeah, triathlon was, like I say, my best Ironman time was, I think it was 9:11. My best marathon, I ran 2:29.
Wow.
When I was 24. That's 20,
Wow.
21 years ago now. So
Not bad, man. Not bad at all. Yeah.
it was
Damn.
a while back, but yeah, like it was good enough to just sort of be on the fringe and like I say, make enough. Actually, my first real sponsor that paid me was called Sunrise Soy Foods, based in Vancouver. So it was a tofu company, and being vegan, I thought that was pretty cool. I got this tofu company that
Pretty on
basically,
brand. Yeah.
right, totally on brand, paid my rent. It was super low rent. I had a bunch of roommates and lived in a shed for a while, but you got to do what you got to do to live the dream and not work a regular job and just train as much as you can, pack 6, 7, 8 hours a day of training in, and not really time for anything else. So yeah, I did my best at it, and I did okay, but never really broke through the way I'd wanted to. But then that led to other things too, and I think it was actually kind of a perfect storm, because when we started Vega, I had to make the decision: do I stop racing full time? And Charles, my partner, he was all in. Like, he had a young family, wife, a young daughter, and he was all in. Sold his truck, reverse mortgage on his house. Like, it was like no plan B, no safety net, which I really admired, because that's the way I approached racing. No plan B, no safety net. It's like you gotta figure this out. So I really admired that in him, and I thought, I can't have one foot in if he's all in. Like, I gotta step up here and match that. So I did. So I made the decision to stop racing and join Charles, and really have a go at this and try and build out the company. And it was good, because I would go around and give talks at Whole Foods and so on to like tiny crowds. I'd written a book, and you get like 12, 15 people showing up, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and I sort of had it in my mind that, like, the harder it was, the more good it was doing me, because that's sort of like the training for Ironman mentality. If it hurts and if it's hard, it's probably making you stronger. And that doesn't always make sense in business, but I didn't know that at that point, which is probably good, because it was just sort of like, yeah, bring it on, make it hard, make it suck, and like, I'm ready for it.
We have a
So
phrase in the military that rings true for that. And it's, there's going to be a lot of suck, and you got to embrace it, embrace the suck. That's a very, very, very common phrase, very common mindset for military, at least for me, but just, people like yourself performing at such elite levels. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be a lot of pain and anguish and suffering and enduring. And you hit on a key word, sacrificing, the certain luxuries. You were shacking up with a bunch of roommates and I just need a roof over my head, food in my belly, and, bare human needs covered. What really does it take? What are the sacrifices it takes to show up every day and just perform and to keep pushing forward to your fullest potential, seeing what potential you can max out from yesterday? And talk us through this sacrifice process and this mindset of being okay with sacrificing certain things for what you want out of life.
yeah, and well, luckily for me, it was, living that way didn't seem like a sacrifice, because I just enjoyed what I did so much. So I always approached it from a place of enjoyment and gratitude, in a sense too, that to me, I looked at it as a luxury that I got to be able to, swim, bike, and run all day long, because that's what I love to do. And it's like, hey, I get to do that. And there are other folks who, for whatever reason, like around me, who would not fully commit. They were just like sort of one foot in, but they always had an excuse. They're like, oh, it's like my job or school or whatever else, right? There's always an excuse. And it's very revealing, and it can be very harsh too, and very hard on the ego when you're all in. You have no excuses. You have no backup plan. And if you don't do well, it's just because you're not very good, right? Like, there's really nowhere to hide, right? So you kind of have to reconcile that sometimes too. But I was okay with that, like, I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I'm not good enough to break through and be one of the premier guys. And then, like I say, the whole other opportunity came along to be able to do that, and build a business that I think I was better suited to. But yeah, as far as sacrifice, sure, there are things like, to me, the biggest sacrifices were not what I had to do, but what I didn't get to do because I was sleeping and eating, because I was tired and hungry from all the training. So like, I couldn't go and just like hang out with friends, and I couldn't go and just like, go on vacation or like go and travel without my bike and, take days off to just enjoy the beach or whatever. Right. There are these things that I think I had to get enough sleep too, naps. Like I would have to have a nap every day. And if I missed my nap the next day, I paid for it. And I didn't enjoy taking the naps.
Sleep is essential for recovery.
So
I'm so
essential.
glad you said that. I
Right.
thought sleep for me is the king. It's the top of my wellness pyramid, because I found over the years when I focus on that and I build everything else around that, everything else flourishes. I'm so glad you said that. Sleep is crucial for daily performance, but also look at this elite athlete.
Oh yeah. When you're training that amount too, I would typically only sleep around 6 hours a night, but then I would have a 2 hour nap every day. So, it was 8 hours. And I'm sure you're aware that, I just kind of learned at the time, but what falling asleep is actually when you get that boost of hormones and HGH and so on. So like, I know some guys who, and I tried this for a while, would actually like wake up in the middle of the night, like set an alarm so that then you would go back to sleep and you would get that
Another
extra
influx of the hormone.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And whether that was, I don't know, folklore
Actual
or actually a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just sort of, because back then too, right? Like in the early 90s, like access to reliable information was not what it is today. And
I knew guys
like
back
people
then too.
tried all kinds of
They would
crazy
wake
stuff,
up so that they could chug a protein shake because like, I'm going to go
Right.
catabolic, So
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Interesting. Damn. Well, I mean, you've done so much, Brendan, in terms of pushing the human envelope, performance, potential, and then in business. I mean, Vega Sports, Vega, the whole line has been a brand that I've seen years. Everywhere I go, there it is. And so, I mean, you guys have been killing it with the lineup over there. And I got to give a quick shout out to more plant-based stuff. I, for years, have always been a whey protein. If I'm supplementing with protein, it's whey protein. Back in my bro split day, it was whey during the day, casein at night.
Yeah.
But I got to say, last several months, I have kind of switched to a little bit more focused plant-based in my diet as a whole. Always trying to hit an adequate protein throughout the day. But when I do supplement, it's with a vegan protein powder, plant-based. And honestly, I didn't know how much more my body preferred a vegan-based protein powder, a plant-based protein powder than a whey. I never would have said I was one who had bloating or digestion problems, but when I swapped, amazing. So anybody out there thinking about trying it, just give it a whirl, see what happens. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good you found that. I think that's true of a lot of people too. They don't feel bad, but then they don't realize how much better they could feel.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, kind of getting towards the end of the conversation here, again, I love talking to people like yourself in terms of personal and professional performance. You've just been go, 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 but you're very mindful of the things that you need to do, things you need to take to supplement your recovery, to supplement your performance. And as hard as you push in your training and in your business, I mean, I've heard an emphasis on recovery and an emphasis on pulling back and, calming the mind, whether that's through whatever practices you have in the day, so that when you do lay your head on the pillow at night, like you said, you just pass out. And of course, you can never go wrong with a little bit of reishi help. But it's just a great example of, we don't always need to be go, 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 go all the time. There's a time and a place for it. But if you want to push to your potential and even past that, you got to pull back sometimes as well. Recovery for you has been, I'm sure, quintessential, right?
Oh, that's what got me into the whole thing in the first place. Is when I first started doing Ironman, I was just blown away at the volume that some of these guys were doing. And I thought, how do you do that? And it was just all came down to recovery. If you can get your body to regenerate and renew itself more quickly, you can pack more training in less time and you get faster in less time. So that's why I got into nutrition in the first place, was to try and speed recovery. 100%. And yeah, like you say, sleep, and I've a Whoop as well. Looks like you have one there too. So
Whoop buddies.
Yeah. No, it's been really helpful too. And just kind of understanding that stuff, and just, there's so many things that come into top performance, obviously with the mind, and recovery and nutrition and everything. Obviously it's, it's complex. That's what keeps it interesting. Like if there were a formula that you could just follow, a template, it wouldn't be interesting. That's, and everyone's different and has different histories and, sees the world through a different set of eyes and has different hang-ups and like emotional things, all these things right at play that all keeps it very interesting. And that's why sport's so interesting, is it's just the sort of, there's a lot of unknown to it, which I think is really cool.
A lot of unknown. It's funny you say that. And we'll wrap up here in just a minute, but it takes me back to my running days. In the military, that's all we would do. It was just all endurance all the time and weighted endurance. And recovery blew my mind, because you're a runner no matter you like it or not in the military. And I was kind of like nursing a little mild ankle injury, and I was on a medical profile, like no running. I think it was about like 4, maybe 5 weeks. And then I came off of that and I had a PT test. We do these, a couple times a year. And by recovery, by letting off my running and allowing my body to actually recover properly for a while, I shaved almost a minute off of my 2-mile run time.
Wow. Yeah.
I maxed, it wasn't a max. It was a maximum is like 300 points. And I think I got like it's like a 293, something like that. Okay. Maxed my push-ups, maxed my sit-ups, and got a super high percentile in my run. Almost a minute off of my run time.
It's crazy.
By not running for a week.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. No, those little things, hey, isn't it interesting? Like, I think all athletes have had that, this thing that you just don't think it's going to work. And for whatever reason, you recover, like you take time off or something happens, like you're injured or something, then you come back from an injury and just like your mind gets blown because it's so counter to what, what was in there for whatever reason, whether it's from what other people said or just what you assume but I love those interesting kind of discoveries.
It's wild, man. Well, Brendan, everything we're talking about here really kind of does, I think, summarize my whole philosophy of how I live my life and how I, share this kind of content, so that we can move forward. Recovery is very important. Like I said, sleep is king for me, but we're all looking for ways to just get better 1% every day to move forward, to move ever forward. What does that mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think stay curious. I mean, just keep asking questions. There's just so much to know, so much to learn, so much to discover. I find when people think they have it all figured out, they're the ones who are farthest away from actually having it figured out. I think
it's from anybody that claims they got it all figured out. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The more you learn about something, it's funny too, like speaking to experts about anything, there's so much gray area and there's so much they're willing to admit that they don't actually know. And the people who don't really know that much have like certainty, like this belief of certainty, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I think just stay curious, just keep asking questions and keep trying things. Don't be afraid to fail, try new stuff. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but then at least you'll know.
Yeah, well, I'll wrap it there. You guys definitely want to dive more into Brendan's content, get some Pulp culture. This stuff is incredible. If you drink alcohol, but it's a way better for you alcohol. Brendan, thanks again for your time here today, man. A great example of the human potential in your personal life, in your training, and in business. Take note that sometimes in order to push the envelope and go past your threshold that you think is even possible, you need to take a step back. Take one step back now so you can take 2 steps forward tomorrow. Brendan, thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Chase. Appreciate it.